get this mic adjusted right. HTG crew. HTG crew, what's up? Hope you're feeling good this week. Unfortunately, another tough week for us last week. That's back-to-back weeks. We're in a bit of a funk, not going to lie. Our winner last week, or the winner we selected, Kevin Streelman, had a real tough Friday en route to a missed cut. Started off well there on Thursday, but that's back-to-back missed cuts for our winners. So, running a bit cold, as they say right now, but there's always time for a comeback, baby. Rule number one. There's always a comeback. So we're about to make that comeback this week. Again, 2021 Travelers wasn't our event, but maybe the Rocket Mortgage Classic is. This week, what am I smoking? Actually, as a matter of fact, I will not be smoking on the podcast this week, and it's not the result of a tolerance break. It's not the result of anything that I even had planned. It's because the delivery service I use here, Kushagram, if you're in Southern California, absolutely shitting the bed here lately over the last couple months. They've been fucking pathetic, honestly. So my scheduled delivery, very, very, very late. Did not arrive on time, so we'll be doing this one sober. Nothing that we haven't done before. Luckily, we took a tolerance break a few weeks back, so I'm kind of used to doing the podcast sober at this point. But hopefully we can get back to smoking that good on next week's podcast, assuming this delivery ever shows up. So with that, let's go ahead and recap 2021 Travelers. Fun event. I mean, I like events where these guys can go out there and make tons of birdies. I know we love to see the U.S. Opens, the Masters, occasionally, right, like the PGA Championships of the world where these guys struggle and par is a really good score. But I do really like the Birdie Fest events, the events where you see these guys stuffing irons to a couple feet and they can really put their prowess on approach, like their unbelievable skills with their irons on full display. That's what Harris English did en route to his victory. Shot 13 under. English has been playing fantastic golf lately. Over the last few months, he's been on a torrid stretch. Found himself the victor in an 8-hole playoff over Kramer Hickok, of all people, who came out of absolutely fucking nowhere to have a stellar week. It took finally on the 8th playoff hole, Harris English finally made a birdie there on 18, which is funny because both English and Hickok birdied the 18th in regulation, their 72nd hole, in order to get to that minus 13 number and get into that playoff. So after that, they clearly cooled off on the 18th, played 18, I believe, 5 times or 6 times in the playoff, played 17 a couple times, 2 or 3 times, and finally English, the 8th playoff hole, was able to make the deciding birdie. And Kramer Hickok, I mentioned, crazy that he was in contention, came out of nowhere. This is his second top 10 of the season, across 20 starts. Man, what a win it would have been for Hickok. Would have vaulted his tour status, would have qualified him for tons of events that he currently is not qualified for. Unfortunately, when I look at this, what a huge missed opportunity for Kramer Hickok to really solidify some status heading into the 2022 PGA Tour season. But let's at least hope that this strong performance from Hickok means, he's trending in the right direction, maybe rounding into some good form, and maybe he can finish off this PGA Tour season strong and get himself some eligibility that he or some status that he does not have at the moment. But man, what an opportunity for Hickok. If he could have secured that victory, would have been absolutely enormous. The second place finish, though, still nets him $700,000, which is more than he's earned all year on tour so far. So certainly not a bad result for Kramer Hickok. Actually, probably really realistically one of the best results you could have hoped for if you're a Kramer Hickok fan. Who I thought was going to win the event coming into Sunday was Bubba Watson, a guy who's won at the Travelers 3 times. Figured he would add a 4th trophy to that trophy case, but man, was he brutal down the stretch. Played his last 5 holes at 6 over par. And I mean, everything unraveled for Bubba. He hit the driver poorly, drove one into the water on the short par 4 15th there. That wasn't a driver, it was a 3-metal, but still did find some fairway bunkers off the tee down the stretch. hit an approach shot into the water on, what was that, on 16, I believe. And then decided to three-putt a couple holes down the stretch. Couldn't get anything up and down. I mean, every single part of Bubba's game was an absolute atrocity down the stretch in his final 5 holes. And man, it really seemed like his event to win. So Bubba being a guy who can sort of get off the rails mentally from time to time. I'm really interested to see how this disappointing finish, how he handles it. I could see it lingering in his mind. I could see it having some residual effects in his play moving forward. So the next performance from Bubba will be very telling. He is in the field for the Rocket Mortgage. I'm going to stay away. Don't love the course fit for him anyway this week, but I am interested to see from a mental standpoint how Bubba rebounds from that tough finish he had last week. And the opposite of a tough finish last week was Mark Leishman, who fired a sparkling bogey-free 64, 6 under 64 on Sunday. Got himself right there into contention, ended up a shot out of the playoff. Couldn't birdie any of the holes coming home, 16, 17, and 18. Would have needed one birdie there to get himself to the minus 13 number in a playoff, but couldn't quite do it. But I mean, a great event for Leishman, who fired all 4 of his rounds in the 60s, capped off with that stellar Sunday 64. And he, along with Abraham Answer, I mean, they were the class of the field if you remove their first round performances. Just got off the slow starts. Nobody was better than Answer in the entire field over the final 3 rounds. Answer went 66 on Friday, 66 on Saturday, and closed with a final round 65 on Sunday. So both Answer and Leishman absolutely caught fire after the first round. And particularly with Answer, it was good to see the off-the-tee game return, the approach numbers strong, and that putter return back to good form as well. So yeah, Abraham Answer looking like he's regained the form that had us so bullish on him heading into the U.S. Open, but the game seemed to fall apart a bit for a short stretch over the last couple weeks. But now it looks like Answer has returned to form. So wanted to point that out, as I usually do, like to point out at the end of the event recap, just some players that maybe went under the radar. Answer maybe not a player that's going to go under the radar, but I do think that he had a sneaky good finish this week. Maybe people don't realize just how much he was able to climb up the leaderboard due to his great play over the final 3 rounds. And with that, I'll leave the 2021 Travelers in the rear view. Again, not a great event for us. Kevin Streelman, I don't know what you were doing on Friday, but I mean, between him and Bubba Watson's finish on Sunday, it was absolutely brutal for us this week. But we're going to go ahead and get it rocking into the 2021 Rocket Mortgage Classic. Rocket Mortgage Classic, we're at Detroit Golf Club. That is in Detroit, Michigan. Plays at a par 72, 7,370 yards, and we are on bent grass greens. Bryson DeChambeau is our defending champion, shot minus 23 in the 2020 version of this event. So 7,370 yards at a par 72. Like last week at Travelers, this is a pretty short track by PGA Tour standards. You don't necessarily need to be extremely long off the tee to contend here. All types of games will be able to contend. You shorter hitters are just going to have to obviously play extremely well on approach from those yardages that you're going to see into the green. And those are typically going to be in the 100 to 175 yard range. Being long off the tee doesn't hurt here. Certainly, like, it'll be a little bit more of an added bonus than it was last week at Travelers, because with the course being a par 72, we do get a full complement of par 5s. 3 of the par 5s really should be reachable in 2 by a majority of the field. But the 4th par 5, I believe it is the 5th hole. Let's take a look here. The fourth hole will play over 600 yards. Likely will play in that 620-yard range. So pays to be a longer hitter on that hole in particular. So a little extra distance off the tee won't hurt us in the slightest here. Will certainly help us more than it would last week at Travelers. As far as the weather goes, we got high temperatures again in the 80-degree range, but we're going to get all the way up to a 90-degree high on Sunday. So ball should be moving plenty far on Sunday. Winds slated to pick up going into the afternoon on both Thursday and Friday. So for you folks in the HCG crew that like to play showdown contests, I really like the idea of stacking early tee times in both the Thursday and Friday showdown contests. Take all 6 players that get out on the golf course early. Thursday will be particularly interesting because there are some showers being called for, likely to hit in the afternoon. Could soften up the golf course and make the afternoon play a bit easier. Depending on how hard it rains, could also make the conditions a little slick and play a little bit more difficult. So I do like the idea of stacking the early tee times both Thursday and Friday. I really like the early tee times on Friday, given that we're not going to see any rain, or at least we're not forecasted to see any rain. But I would also lean toward an early tee time stack on Thursday as well. Most of the par 4s on this golf course are in that 350 to 400 yard range. Most of them actually sit really right at 400 yards. We do get some additional par 4s that are in that 400 to 450 yard range. But again, this is a short golf course by PGA Tour standards, especially at its adjusted par of 72. So we're really just looking for folks that can strike the ball well. Whether you hit the ball long or you're one of the shorter hitters off the tee, you need to be a good ball striker. You need to be really strong tee to green, and you need to play these par 4 range as well. That's really what's correlated to success here. Both are past champions here. Bryson DeChambeau last year and Nate Lashley the year prior performed extremely well against the field in par 4 scoring, particularly in par 4 scoring 350 to 400 yards and 400 to 450 yards, which is where we see most of these par 4s on Detroit Golf Club land. So as far as the statistical model and golfer prototype is concerned, we're looking at strokes gained tee to green, par 4 scoring on par 4s 350 to 400 yards, par 4 scoring on par 4s 400 to 450 yards, strokes gained on par 5s, and strokes gained putting as well. My winner this week, sits in the top shelf. So drop in the YouTube comments who you think my winner is this week. Also let me know who you think is going to win the 2021 Rocket Mortgage Classic. Some withdrawals, do a little bit of housekeeping here. Charlie Hoffman, old Chuck, would have been an interesting play this week, but he has withdrawn. As has Eric Van Rooyen, EVR, Luke List, and Jim Canoose. All 4 of those players have withdrawn, so if you're playing Chuck Hoffman, Eric Van Rooyen, Luke List, or Jim Canoose, get them the fuck out of your squads because they ain't playing this week. I can guarantee that they will not pay off their salaries. And with that, let me get a little bit of coffee here. And then we can rock right into our top shelf plays. Top shelf plays are $10,000 or more in DraftKings salary. Our first top shelf play, Mr. Patrick Reed, $10,900 price tag, 16.3% projected ownership. And we're going to get to a quick ding, ding, ding. He is my winner for the event, Piggy Reed. Reed, a guy who I usually mention, it doesn't really matter what the model's telling me. I want to at least consider Patrick Reed in pretty much any event. He's live to win basically anything if he starts to find his form mid-event. But Reed is loved by the model this week, which is actually kind of rare. Coming in first in the custom model, 4th on the par 4 range, 350 to 400 yards, 1st in strokes gained tee to green, 6th in that par 4 range, 400 to 450 yards, 43rd in par 5 scoring, 69th in putting, and 66th. So he's 43rd in par 5 scoring on par 5s 550 to 600 yards, 66th in par 5 scoring 600 to 650 yards. But again, we only have the one par 4 in that range, par 5 in that range, which is the par 5 4th hole. So not too concerned about Reed's performance there on the long par 5s, but man, he is absolutely crushing the par 4 range that we're looking at this week. With Reed statting out well as having some solid tournament history here, came T5 in 2019 when Nate Lashley won the event. He was cut last year when Bryson won the event, but yeah, I'm getting good vibes around Patrick Reed this week. The 16.3% projected ownership doesn't scare me. He is my projected winner, and as such, you can expect that I will be rostering plenty of him on DraftKings this week. So Patrick Reed, $10,900 will kick off the top shelf plays, 16.3% projected ownership. My second and final top shelf play, a guy that absolutely fucking burned us at the U.S. Open, missed his first cut in a major in I think like 12 consecutive starts or something like that. But we're going to go back to him. It's Webb Simpson, $10,600 price tag, 17.4% projected ownership, coming in fourth in the custom model. He, like Reed, crushes these par 4 ranges. In the 350 to 400 yard range, he's 12th in this field over the last 12 measured rounds. And in the 400 to 450 yard range, he's 37th in this field over the last 12 measured rounds. The guy gets it done tee to green, 24th in this field over the last 12 measured rounds in that category, and came T8 last year here, so the course history is solid. He did not play the inaugural event in 2019, so course history looks good. Webb, a guy who on a golf course that's playing short, a guy you can always look to, right? We're going to need Webb to get hot with that putter. Hasn't shown as much upside with the flat stick as we normally see from Webb. He's 50th in this field over the last 12 measured rounds, but I expect that Webb can certainly outperform that 50th ranking in this field. Really struggled with the putter at the U.S. Open, but prior to that at the PGA Championship, did gain 3.5 strokes putting. He lost 2.7 strokes putting at the U.S. Open, but I mean, it's a U.S. Open, right? That's supposed to be the most difficult test in golf that these guys see all year. So I'm not going to write off Webb because of a poor putting performance there at Torrey Pines. As a matter of fact, I think we're getting reduced ownership on Webb because of his poor performance at Torrey. I would have expected Webb to be over 20% projected ownership because he is a great fit for this golf course. So Webb Simpson, $10,600, 17.4% projected ownership is our second and final top shelf play for the week. And since we closed out the top shelf, we will next be moving to our mid-shelf plays. Mid-shelf plays are $7,500 or more in DraftKings pricing. And a lot of good mid-shelf plays this week. We're a little light in the top shelf, a little bit heavier in the mid-shelf and SCHWAG bag this week. Really pretty heavy in the mid-shelf. There are so many plays here that are we can leverage some low ownership on that I think have a lot of upside. But we also have to fight through the chalk in this range. And we're going to start off with the chalk in the mid-shelf plays here with Jason Kokrak at $9,500, 24.8% projected ownership. But Kokrak's underpriced in this field for what he's been doing recently, and the course fit looks absolutely stellar. Coming in 21st in the custom model, 8th in that par 4 range, 350 to 400 yards, 54th in that par 4 range, 400 to 450 yards. But Kokrak been putting the shit out of the ball, 4th in this field over the last 12 measured rounds with the flat stick, 3rd in this field in that long par 5 range, 43rd in this field in the shorter par 5 range, 550 to 600 yards, and 48th in this field tee to green. But I mean, over the last couple events, Kokrak's shown what he can do tee to green. Charles Schwab, obviously, he won, gained 5.2 strokes on approach, 6.2 strokes off the tee, gained another 2.2 strokes on approach at the PGA Championship. Did lose off the tee there, losing 2.3 strokes off the tee, but that is a serious rarity for him. Struggled at the U.S. Open, lost 0.8 strokes off the tee and 0.4 strokes on approach, but continued the stellar putting. Kokrak has gained strokes putting in 5 consecutive events. And if we go back to his previous 8 events, he has gained 2.1, 5.5, 4.2, 3.0, 3.0, lost 1.8 strokes putting at the Arnold Palmer Invitational, but then gained 4.2 and 8.2 strokes putting prior to that. So 7 of his last 8 performances have been phenomenal with the flat stick. And he spikes with high upside on approach and off the tee as well. So if we get a good performance from Kokrak off the tee and on approach, then we could see something similar to what we saw at Charles Schwab, where he won, gained 14.8 strokes total, gained 9.4 strokes tee to green, added 5.5 strokes putting, and that all adds up to a victory. So I really like Kokrak this week, even at the 24.8% projected ownership. The course fit seems phenomenal. I'm willing to eat that chalk on Kokrak this week. A guy who looks like he's rounding into some form. He's sort of fallen off the map here lately. Mr. Sungjae Im, $9,300 price tag, 9.5% projected ownership. Sungjae had been playing some really poor golf as of recent, but looks like here in the really, really recent rounds, Sungjae started to pick it up a bit, coming in the custom model 30th. Plays the par 4 range 350 to 400 yards, 88th in this field, but plays the par 4 range 400 to 450 yards, 21st. He is 34th tee to green. That's really where Sungjae's been struggling, so it's encouraging to see him climb his way to 34th, and he's done that really off the back of some strong approach numbers in his last couple events. Gained 5.2 strokes on approach at Palmetto, which admittedly a weaker field, especially for a player of Sungjae's caliber, but also gained 2.3 strokes on approach at the U.S. Open, so it looks like the approach game is trending in the right direction, and we love to see that from Sungjae, a guy who we can count on to gain strokes tee to green. It looks like we should be able to count on him to gain strokes on approach this week. It just depends on if the off-the-tee game returns. He has lost 1.6 strokes off the tee at Palmetto, lost 0.1 strokes off the tee at the U.S. Open. But Sungjae, a guy for the course of his career, has proven that he typically gains off the tee. So at least encouraging to see that the off-the-tee performance improved from Palmetto to the U.S. Open. He's had a couple 35th place finishes in both of those events, so the results are starting to trickle in off the back of a couple of missed cuts. If Sungjae can continue to trend in the right direction off the tee, then 9.5% projected ownership's too low. He has the upside to win this event. He really does. Came T53 last year, T21 in 2019. So made both cuts in both his trips here to the Rocket Mortgage Classic. Hasn't shown stellar upside yet with the course history, but I mean, the event's only been in existence for 2 years, so not going to read too much into that. So Sungjae M, $9,300 price tag, 9.5% projected ownership. Looks like he's rounding into form, so let's hop on the bandwagon early. An absolute crapshoot. I don't really know what to think about this guy this week, but he's statting out well enough, and he looks like he's returning to good enough form, although last week has me scared. It's Slick Ricky Fowler, $8,700 price tag, 7.1% projected ownership, coming in 29th in the custom model. Plays that par 4 range, 350 to 400 yards, 146th in this field over the last 12 measured rounds, and plays the par 4 range, 400 to 450 yards, 75th in this field. That's why I'm likely going to move away from Fowler, but I mean, the tee to green numbers had me surprised. 21st in this field over the last 12 measured rounds tee to green, and 33rd in this field with the putter. So the good putting that we expected of Fowler, 3, 4, 5 years ago when he was a world-class player, that seems to be coming back. And the tee to green seems to be, as good as you can expect it to be from Fowler, being 21st in this field over the last 12 measured rounds. Now, I am concerned at the Travelers. He lost 2.6 strokes on approach and 2.7 strokes off the tee. Also lost 1.2 strokes with the putter. So it seems like the issues that have plagued Fowler over the last few years may be returning. But prior to Travelers, he had 2 really strong performances at PGA and Memorial. Gained 4.5 strokes on approach at the PGA, gained 1.6 strokes on approach at Memorial, gained over 4 strokes tee to green in both of those events. Fowler's been really weak off the tee, but that's, been the case for quite some time now. That Fowler hasn't been phenomenal off the tee. He's lost 0.3 strokes off the tee on average over his last 5 events, lost 0.1 strokes off the tee on average over his last 10. So hasn't been great in that regard. So, if we can get the Fowler from Memorial and PGA, who, striking the ball well, gaining tee to green, gaining really big on approach, and really rolling the flat stick well, then I can buy into this $8,700 price tag. But given his performance last week at Travelers, I am a little concerned, and $8,700 it's a pretty penny to pay for a player who we don't have a lot of confidence in. But Ricky Fowler certainly presents us with plenty of upside at this $8,700 price tag. So at least wanted to mention him as someone you can look at in this range. Did come T12 here last year and came T46 in 2019. So has made the cut both times here. Should have some good feels around Detroit Golf Club. At $8,300, a guy who I'd much rather go to than Fowler, saved the $400. Garrick Higo, 14.6% projected ownership. The little lefty, South African lefty, the South African Brian Harman, if you will. Been balling, right? already has a win on the PGA Tour, coming in 13th in the custom model. He's 91st on that par 4 range, 350 to 400 yards, and 42nd in the par 4 range, 400 to 450 yards, which I did not like to see. But 3 of these par 5s on this golf course are going to be playing 550 to 600 yards, and Higo leads this field over the last 12 measured rounds in par 5 scoring in that range. He's also 25th tee to green and 30th with the putter. Higo looks like a great fit on this golf course, and as I mentioned, has already proven that you can have success on the PGA Tour, which is a lot more than you can say about some of these Euros, given it was the Palmetto, but still, a win is a win. He gained 4.6 strokes on approach and 3.4 strokes off the tee, added 3.8 strokes putting in that performance. Has been lackluster lately. At Travelers, lost 3.6 strokes around the green, which led to a miscut, but he did gain 0.9 strokes off the tee, 1.2 strokes on approach, and 1.6 strokes with the putter there. At the U.S. Open, again, lost around the green, lost with the putter, was almost neutral on approach, and gained off the tee. I mean, this guy's a good ball striker, and has plenty of upside. We don't even really know what the upside is yet for Garrick Higo in an event like this. Not a super strong field this week, a pretty weak field, as a matter of fact, so not nearly as weak as Palmetto, which actually at the top end had a couple of players, but this field not as weak as Palmetto, but still not incredibly strong. So I do like the upside that Garrick Higo presents at $8,300, 14.6% projected ownership. Even though he burned us last week, we're going to go back to Emiliano Grillo, or Grillo. Let's figure out how. I've heard it pronounced both ways. I mean, being someone that speaks some Spanish, I would imagine it's Grillo, but I've heard from so many places that, the Argentine pronounces it Grillo. Let's figure it out once and for all right now on the pod. Grillo. Interesting. Yeah, so it is Grillo. Yep, perfect. So Emiliano Grillo. $8,200 price tag, 11.7% projected ownership. I don't need to give you guys the case for him again. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing. Every week I want to play him at his price tag. He is a better ball striker than pretty much everyone he's priced around. Will he bring the putter? We have no clue. But if he does, he's going to pay off. That's why we like Grillo. 11.7% projected ownership, $8,200 price tag. A guy we can take a shot on this week. I don't feel great about it, but I don't know. In a tournament that's going to be a birdie fest, I wish we were on the West Coast, and I'd like him a lot more, but we can fire up some Phil Mickelson. $8,000 flat is a bit high on the price tag side, but 4.1% projected ownership has me interested. Mickelson coming in 28th in the custom model, 38th in the par 4 range, 350 to 400 yards, 14th in that par 5 range. It's going to be important, 550 to 600 yards. 59th in that par 4 range, 400 to 450 yards, and 39th tee to green. Mickelson's been really bad with the putter since his win at the PGA. 111th in this field over his last 12 measured rounds with the flat stick. If Mickelson can find some magic with the putter, I like his chances to make a lot of birdies this week. I mean, Mickelson's going to be a guy that's going to be uber aggressive, so he's either going to pay off in spades or absolutely flame out. And at 4.1% projected ownership, we better be taking a player that has tremendous upside, and Phil Mickelson does have that. So I do like Phil at that $8,000 flat price tag. I also like Siwoo Kim at $8,000 flat, 8.6% projected ownership. Again, similar to Grillo. A great ball striker for his price tag. Just a better ball striker than most of these players he's priced around. And if he brings the putter, then he's going to pay off his price tag. So Siwoo and Grillo, I feel like I'm beating the same drum over and over again with these guys whenever I mention them as potential plays. But yeah, I mean, these guys are just phenomenal ball strikers. They hit the shit out of the ball, and they usually lose a ton of strokes on the greens. And if they cannot do that this week, then we're going to be very happy with them in our DraftKings lineups. How about we look to some Doc Redman this week at $7,900? I was floored by how well Redman's been hitting the ball. Coming in 8th in the custom model, 49th in the par 4 range, 350 to 400 yards, 46th in the par 4 range, 400 to 450 yards, so not stellar there, but 26th in that par 5 range, that's important, 550 to 600 yards, 19th in this field in strokes gained tee to green over the last 12 measured rounds. That shocked me from Doc Redman. And 34th with the putter over his last 12 measured rounds. I mean, Redman's kind of rolling. The approach is just stupid. Gained 3.9 at Travelers, 5.8 at Palmetto, 0.7 at Memorial, 2.8 at Charles Schwab, and 2 strokes on approach at Byron Nelson. So has gained in 5 consecutive events. He has lost strokes off the tee in 4 of those 5 events. Byron Nelson was the only time he gained off the tee, and he lost a ton of strokes off the tee, 3.1 strokes off the tee last week at Travelers. So it is really as simple as if Doc Redman is neutral off the tee. He doesn't even have to gain off the tee. If he is neutral off the tee, he's going to pay off this price tag. He's gained in 6 straight events with the putter. Everything else checks out. Redman's just going to have a solid week off the tee. And again, I don't think off the tee is going to be as important this week. I mean, Redman lost 3.1 strokes off the tee last week at Travelers and still was able to make the cut. I think similar to Travelers, like Travelers, this event shouldn't weigh off the tee super heavily. And if Redman can perform, neutral to the field or even gain some strokes off the tee, he's going to pay off in spades. So really like Doc Redman, $7,900 price tag, 12.7% projected ownership. Also like another guy we talked about last week, got a bit of a price bump it looks like. Chez Reavie, coming in 20th in the custom model, does not play these par 4 ranges very well. 110th in the 350 to 400 yard par 4 range, 62nd in the 400 to 450 par 4 range, but second in this field, tee to green. Reavie been putting awfully lately. Reavie coming in 119th in this field over the last 12 measured rounds with the putter. Reavie never been a great putter over the course of his career, but does have some splash performances with the putter from time to time where he can gain, 2-3 strokes with the flat stick. And if he does that, man, the tee to green has been something to marvel. He's gained 5.7 strokes tee to green at Travelers, 7.8 strokes tee to green at the U.S. Open, 8.7 strokes tee to green at Palmetto. The approach numbers have been stellar over that time as well, gaining no fewer than 3.4 strokes on approach over those 3 events. Been great around the green as well. It's literally just the putter that's letting him down. So if Chez Reavie can find it with the putter a little bit this week, and it has been improving a bit, it lost 4.7 strokes with the putter at the U.S. Open, only lost 0.7 strokes with the putter at Travelers. So if Reavie can find some form with the flat stick, maybe gain a bit with the putter, I love him at a $7,600 price tag. 10.3% projected ownership, so the ownership's sort of there, but nothing to be concerned about. At the same price tag and similar ownership is Kyle Stanley, $7,600 price tag, again, 10.8% projected ownership. Stanley, one of these guys who on a golf course where we're not, weighing driving distance heavily, you can likely look to Kyle Stanley, right? If he's not going to have to hit it far, Kyle Stanley is live. He's coming in the custom model 11th, 32nd on that par 4 range, 350 to 400 yards, 64th in that par 4 range, 400 to 450 yards, but 6th in strokes gained tee to green. Another guy who's really struggling with the flat stick, 128th in this field in strokes gained putting over the last 12 measured rounds. So you can kind of group these guys together. Stanley, Reavie, Stanley, Reavie, Si Woo, Emiliano Grillo. Those are all guys who, if they are neutral with the putter this week or manage to gain a bit, don't even have to gain a stroke, just gain, a few tenths of a stroke with the putter, they're guys that you're going to want on your DraftKings rosters. One sort of mid-shelf dart throw, a guy who we're gonna see if he's returning to some form here. Pat Perez at a $7,500 price tag, 4.9% projected ownership, has been hitting the ball pretty well. Sort of took a step back last week, lost 3.1 strokes on approach, but prior to that, it gained on approach in 5 consecutive events with 6.3 strokes gained on approach at Palmetto. It gained tee to green in 4 consecutive events prior to that performance last week at Travelers. So if we throw out Travelers, then Perez looking really good. Gonna have to likely turn it around off the tee. somewhere where he has not been performing all that great, but it looks like he's getting it turned around a bit. Has gained off the tee. Well, I guess was neutral off the tee at Palmetto, literally 0 strokes gained off the tee. Gained zero point 0.4 strokes off the tee at Travelers. So he's trending in the right direction there. If you can flip the approach numbers back to what they were looking like in the 5 events previous to Travelers, I like Perez. I mean, on average over the last 5 events, even with the 3.1 strokes lost at Travelers on approach, he's gaining 1.5 strokes on approach and gaining 2.8 strokes tee to green. Pat Perez could be sneaky this week, guys. He could be really sneaky this week. I'm going to try and slide him into some lineups. I don't have a ton of confidence in him, but he's another one of those guys who has low ownership that presents a lot of upside. Let's take a look at Perez's finishes at this event. Came T45 here last year and did not play it in 2019. So at least he made the cut here last year. It's better than a miscut, right? The last mid-shelf play is Mr. Ryan Armour, also at $7,500. Came T4 here last year, so the course history looking great for Armour. 9.6% projected ownership. Not too shabby, especially for a guy coming in 6th in the custom model. Plays those par 4s, 350 to 400 yards, 2nd in this field. The par 4s, 400 to 450 yards, plays him 35th in this field over the last 12 measured rounds. Is 14th tee to green, 22nd with the putter. Like, the only area that Ryan Armour's lacking is in the par 5s. 97th in this field in that important par 5 range, 550 to 600 yards. So if Armour can just, rack up some birdies on the par 5s, he looks great this week. $7,500, sub 10%, single digit ownership. It's going to be hard to move away from Ryan Armour this week. Down here, I prefer him to Perez. I prefer him to Stanley. I prefer him to Reeve. And then once we get up more to that 8K pricing range, that's obviously a different pricing tier that we're talking about. So I would rather go to the Redmonds and the Siwoos if I have the money for them. But if not, I'll just save and go down to Ryan Armour at $7,500, 9.6% projected ownership, looking like a very strong play this week. And that does it for the mid-shelf, which takes us to the SCHWAG bag, baby. I know the HTG crew loves themselves some SCHWAG bag players. SCHWAG bag players are below $7,500 in Draftkings pricing. And this is where we take our shots, we play some bombs, we see what sort of, low-owned, low-priced players we can go to. I do have one player that I don't even have ownership for, priced almost at the minimum. So we're going to take a shot on someone this week. Other than that, didn't go any lower than $6,700. Didn't necessarily love the SCHWAG bag this week. But let's go ahead and kick it off with Danny Willett at a $7,400 price tag, 13.4% projected ownership. Willett coming in 16th in the custom model. Plays that par 4 range, 350 to 400 yards, 125th in this field. But the 400 to 450 yard par 4 range, he's 33rd in this field over the last 12 measured rounds. And if you can't tell already with a bit of a theme, if these guys are statting out like pretty poorly in the par 4 ranges, I at least want them to make up for that with their tee to green performances over the last 12 measured rounds. And Willett does that similarly to some of the other players I mentioned. He's 12th in this field over the last 12 measured rounds tee to green. 9th in this field in that important par 5 range, 550 to 600 yards. Has not been good with the putter. 97th in this field over the last 12 measured rounds with the putter. But he's been playing some good golf. We last saw him at Memorial, gained 1.9 strokes on approach. He did lose 3.3 strokes off the tee in that event, but that is the worst performance off the tee he's had in quite some time. As a matter of fact, it's the worst performance off the tee he's had since the 2017 PGA Championship. So I'm inclined to believe that Willett can bounce back off the tee. And again, off the tee, not going to be weighed super heavily this week anyway. So really like to see the approaches in form. Really, Willett's been doing a lot of his damage around the green, which is not precisely what you'd like to see. But we have seen Bryson and Nate Lashley perform well around the green in their wins in 2020 and 2019, respectively. So not the worst thing to have on your side. And if the approach numbers can stick around where they were at Memorial, then getting Willett down here in the SCHWAG bag, a player of his caliber, seems fair to me. 13.4% projected ownership. I would have liked to see that in the single digits because I don't have a ton of confidence in Willett. But certainly someone, if you land on $7,400 left, that you can slot in as your last guy in your lineups for DraftKings. One of the only guys who really paid off for us last week that we rostered, Hank Lebioda, coming in a $7,200 price tag, 10.1% projected ownership, coming third in the custom model, 42nd in that par 4 range, 350 to 400 yards, first in the par 4 range, 400 to 450 yards. He's 18th tee to green over the last 12 measured rounds in this field, 5th with the putter. Not great in that par 5 range, 550 to 600 yards, coming in 63rd, but I mean, kind of like a poor man's Ryan Armour coming into this event, which is a weird thing to say. I don't know if a poor man's Ryan Armour is really a thing that exists, but yeah, if the only thing that Lebioda has not been doing well lately is scoring on the par 5s, if he can find some birdies on the par 5s, then I love him at a $7,200 price tag. And even if he doesn't, he's doing everything else so well that I'll go ahead and fire him up anyway. So Hank Lebioda, $7,200 price tag, 10.1% projected ownership, looking like a great play down here in the SCHWAG bag. One of probably the play I have the most confidence in down here in the SCHWAG bag. Got to get yourself some bucket hat Dahmen, some Joel Dahmen, $7,000 price tag, 5.6% projected ownership. Dahmen been in a bit of a lull, right? Usually a DFS crowd favorite, a guy that can get really hot with his irons. Really has not been very good this year, but he's spiked with on approach in a few of his last events. 3 of the last 5 events, really. Or I guess we can say, really, it's been more than that. 3, 4, 5 of his last 7. He's been really good on approach. Of course, he won at Corrales Punta Cana back in March. We don't get strokes gained data for that, but I imagine he gained massively on approach in that event. Prior to that, he had gained 3.6 strokes on approach at the Players. He gained 3.8 strokes on approach at Wells Fargo, gained 5.5 strokes on approach at the PGA, gained 4.1 strokes on approach last time we saw him at Memorial. So he has sprinkled in some poor performances on approach in between. So he's going to be a bit of a volatile play, but we know that if we hit with Dahmen, we're going to hit big, right? He's going to gain big time on approach. One sort of red flag, Dahmen lost 3.2 strokes off the tee at Memorial, the first event that he's lost off the tee in his last 9. So would like to see Dahmen turn that around. There's no reason to suggest that he shouldn't. He's gained on average off the tee in his last 5, last 10, last 20, and last 100 measured events. So both short-term and long-term, this is a guy that we can expect to gain strokes off the tee. I love old Bucket Hat Dahmen this week, and he's only getting 5.6% projected ownership. Maybe that's an artifact of his tournament history here, which he hasn't on. Yeah, he's going to be playing the event for the first time. So maybe that's the concern with some folks. Doesn't scare me away. With Lebioda, he's actually, going back to Lebioda, Lebioda's been cut from this event both times he's played it, yet he's still garnering that 10.1% projected ownership. But the form for Lebioda is just so good that I'll be playing him. And Dahmen getting a little bit disrespected at 5.6% projected ownership coming into this event for the first time. It's going to be a pretty tough decision between these two guys. I have a little more confidence in the recent form for Lebioda, but getting almost half the projected ownership on Dahmen feels nice. Maybe I'll just have to roster some of these guys together, Lebioda and Dahmen, in some lineups, but I'll certainly have to make a choice between the two in some lineups as well. Not quite sure which way I lean as of now. All the way down at 2.8% projected ownerships, Kevin Chappell, $6,900 price tag. Chappell been hitting the ball well, coming in 15th in the custom model, 13th tee to green over the last 12 measured rounds in this field, 20th in that par 4 range, 350 to 400 yards, 39th in that par 4 range, 400 to 450 yards, 69th, nice, in that important par 5 range, 550 to 600 yards, and been terrible with the putter, 136th in this field over the last 12 measured rounds. In strokes gained putting, I do not feel confident about Chappell in any way, shape, or form. but he can certainly have spike performances with the putter, like we saw at Honda, like we saw at the AT&T Pro-Am, albeit in a missed cut. And he's a good player on approach, right? Over his last 5 measured rounds, gained 1.2 strokes on approach, gained 1 stroke off the tee, gained 2.8 strokes tee to green. He has been striking the ball well, especially for a $6,900 price tag. We just have to hope that we get a spike putting performance from him like we saw at the Honda, where he finished 13th. So if we can get a performance like that from Kevin Chappell, we'll certainly be happy having him on our DraftKings rosters. I might rather look to the Marty Party and Martin Laird, $6,900 price tag, 2.7% projected ownership, coming in 32nd in the custom model, so not statting out as well as Kevin Chappell. But Laird, for me, just presents a little bit more upside. A guy who, if he is hot, he has the potential for a top 5 finish. Coming in 32nd in the custom model, 53rd in the par 4 range, 350 to 400 yards, 82nd in that par 4 range, 400 to 450 yards, but 32nd in this field in strokes gained tee to green, which is good to see. 34th in that par 5 range, 550 to 600 yards, which is going to be important this week. And like a lot of these guys we're looking at this week, 100th in this field in strokes gained putting over the last 12 measured rounds. So going to need to show some upside with the putter. But Martin Laird, certainly a guy who, when he has it going, can get really hot in these birdie fests. A guy who we usually like to play at an event like, Shriners, or an event like Waste Management, right? Like these events where you can go low, even these opposite field events like Puerto Rico, he's shown to have some success at. So events where birdies are going to be needed in bunches are where I'm going to look to play Martin Laird, and this is one of those events. So I have no problem going to Martin Laird, especially all the way down at 2.7% projected ownership. Given the upside that he presents, we can look to the Marty Party this week. I'm trying to get his tournament history here. He played the event in 2019 and was cut. Did not play it in 2020. Again, the event's only occurred for 2 years, so if you do have some solid performances here over the last 2 years, it's certainly an added bonus. But I'm not going to make my decisions solely based on 2 years of course history here at Detroit Golf Club. Scott Piercy. Let's talk some Scott Piercy at $6,800. 4% flat is his projected ownership. Piercy coming in 5th in the custom model. He's 84th in the par 4 range, 350 to 400 yards, but 25th in that par 4 range, 400 to 450 yards. 5th in this field in strokes gained tee to green over the last 12 measured rounds. Piercy's been red hot. And in both par 5 ranges, Piercy is getting it done. 5th in the par 5 range, 550 to 600 yards, which is oh so important. And much less important, given that it's only going to be the 4th hole playing in this range. But the par 5 range, 600 to 650 yards, Piercy actually coming in 2nd in this field. So 106 with the putter. Again, we continue our theme. We're going to be team no putt this week. And we're just going to hope these guys don't lose tons of strokes on the green. But from a ball striking standpoint, it does not get much better than Scott Piercy down here at a $6,800 price tag, given his recent form. Piercy at this event has not played this event yet, so he'll be seeing Detroit Golf Club for the first time. A guy who really is going to embody Team No Putt this week, like in a big, big way. Joseph Bramlett, $6,700 price tag. What's his projected? 8.8% projected ownership. Coming in 2nd in the custom model. 98th in strokes gained putting over the last 12 measured rounds, but this guy's 7th in strokes gained tee to green, 10th in that par 4 range, 350 to 400 yards, 52nd in that par 4 range, 400 to 450 yards, and 20th in that par 5 range. It's going to be really important, 550 to 600 yards. I mean, Bramlett continually gain strokes off the tee and on approach, but is so bad with the putter. Bramlett, let's see, last week at Travelers gained 2.2 strokes on approach, gained 0.1 strokes off the tee, but lost 2.5 strokes with the putter in a missed cut. At Palmetto, he gained 6 strokes off the tee, gained 0.4 strokes on approach, but lost 0.9 strokes with the putter. Did lose both off the tee and on approach at Charles Schwab, but prior to that at Byron Nelson, gained 4 strokes off the tee, gained 3.3 strokes on approach. So over his last five events, on average, he's gained 0.8 strokes on approach and 2.5 strokes off the tee. That's led to 2.8 strokes gained tee to green on average over his last 5 measured events. Those are phenomenal numbers for all the way down at $6,700. again, the putting's been bad. We're team no putt this week. He's lost 0.9 strokes on average putting over his last 5 measured events. So we're going to need Bramlett to do anything with the flat stick, like just be neutral. The last time we saw Bramlett not lose with the putter was at the Byron Nelson in May. He gained 2.5 strokes putting and came 7th. So that's what we're talking about. If we can get Bramlett to gain some strokes with the putter, or even be neutral, he's definitely going to pay off at this $6,700 price tag and only 8.8% projected ownership. I mean, I actually was expecting it to be a bit lower, but it looks like some folks are catching on to the ball striking for Bramlett and not necessarily paying as close attention to the results, given that he missed the cut at the Travelers. But I mean, the ball striking's so good. We're gonna go back to Joseph Bramlett, and that takes us to our bomb play. A Monday qualifier, a guy who qualified in Monday qualification. We actually had a 9-for-3 playoff in Monday qualification. 9 players had a playoff for 3 spots, and it went, I forget how many holes it went, but I think it was similar to the playoff we saw at Travelers between Harris English and Kramer Hickok that went 8 holes. But one of the guys that made it through from that 9-for-3 playoff is a stellar talent, and his name is Justin Suh. $6,100 price tag. I am not sure on his projected ownership because he was a Monday qualifier, but I mean, this guy is a high pedigree player. If you remember, there won't be a Rookie of the Year on the PGA Tour this year, but I had slated Suh as being a candidate for that, given that I imagined he would get some sponsors exemptions. I imagined he would qualify as a Monday qualifier in some of these events, as he's done in this event. And I expect him to flash in a few of these performances. And Suh actually has done that on the PGA Tour a bit. He's shown the ability to make a cut. He's shown the ability to, have a decent finish on the PGA Tour. Let's take a look at some of his tournament results here. He missed the cut at the U.S. Open and the Wells Fargo. At Corrales, came 28th. In Puerto Rico, came 35th. At the Farmers, came 37th. So prior to the missed cuts at the U.S. Open and Wells Fargo, had made 3 consecutive cuts on tour. Clearly getting through in that Monday qualification means he's in at least decent form coming into this event. And he is a serious, serious talent. A player that we expect to have a very, very lucrative and successful career on the PGA Tour. I mean, a class player at USC, one of the best in all of college golf during his time there. So Justin Suh, yeah, I'm gonna take some shots at him. $6,100 price tag allows you plenty of room from a pricing standpoint to get up to some of these top shelf plays like Reed and Simpson. Also leaves you plenty of room if you want to stab at the top of the mid shelf with loading up on Kokrak and Sungjae. And I do expect Justin Suh's ownership to be really suppressed, right? First of all, I don't think a lot of people are going to play these Monday qualifiers. Some people might not even know that they're in the field. And secondly, Suh has been underwhelming in his last 2 appearances on the PGA Tour, and I expect people to write him off as a result. But if he comes in form, the kid's got a ton of talent. So I'll take talent and upside any day of the week, especially at a reduced price tag and reduced ownership. And that is Justin Suh this week. And that closes out the SCHWAG bag. That closes out our plays for the 2021 Rocket Mortgage Classic. Make sure you guys like the video on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, follow us and subscribe to us anywhere you listen to your podcast, whether that be Spotify, Apple Music, whatever the case may be. Make sure you get subscribed. We're going to have some big weeks coming. You got to ride the highs with the lows, the peaks with the valleys. I'm telling you guys, the process is still strong. We're still riding with it. And let's hope that young Mr. Patrick Reed, I guess he's not so young anymore, is he? But let's hope Piggy Reed can get it done for us this week. The player pool's looking strong. I've upped my stake on DraftKings this week because I'm expecting a big week. And I hope to get plenty of screenshots from you guys on your good performances as well this week as a result of these plays. HTG crew, you already know how it is. It's nothing but love. I love you all, and I'll see you next week. Peace.